So is the U.S. Navy actually being realistic and practical and looking at this in the way that you would hope they would, or are they kind of wishy-washy about the China stuff?
If you're in the fleet, if you go out to the fleet, people are very realistic. So no question that the people in the fleet know what's going on and understand it. The problem is when you get back to Washington and you have this threat deflation mindset that is like a fog over the swamp, a fog over Washington. And it affects the Pentagon. It infects the State Department. It infects the White House, the National Security Council, and the think tanks. They're all under this mindset of, well, this is not really that important. And so what happens is what we see in reality. Resources in the budget are not given to building ships and the missiles and systems that are required. Instead, you'll get arguments, well, we need to focus on, cyber or distributed operations or things of that nature. But you don't have anybody standing up in Congress today, and you haven't had any admirals, unfortunately, back in the Pentagon that have stood up and said, I resign because it's unsustainable. No one has said that. So it's left us, people like me to ask that question. And then the answer is, well, he's out of it. He's been retired. He doesn't really know. He lives overseas, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is our numbers have declined, numbers of ships, and our submarines are declining. And we don't have any plan really to make a massive pull up and to rearm ourselves in the naval arena. And there's plans that talk about a 355 ship, 360 ship, things of that nature, but they're always built in a 30-year ship plan. So what they do is they say, we got a plan and we're going to build all these ships for the next 30 years. And each year when the budget comes forward, that end state always changes. It's always changing. And so we never get there.
Well, let's be honest with ourselves. I don't think the Chinese military can match what the U.S. is doing in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. We got them beat.
I think so.
So let's add some context to this whole thing. I mean, we're talking a lot about, China being able to launch an effective war. Currently, it seems like the Chinese economy is completely imploding. You have massive unrest, particularly from young people, especially young men who can't find jobs, who can't find wives.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, Chris. There is no youth unemployment.
Technically, that is true. It got so bad they just stopped reporting it. Brilliant, actually. Meritocracy. So it doesn't seem like, with so many internal problems, it doesn't seem like China can handle any external problems, let alone going to war.
There's people that put that argument forward. There's another school that says, because of all the things that you just mentioned, that going to war and creating an outside enemy helps focus the population and gives jobs to young men to go land on the shores of Taiwan.
Well, do you think that with the young people so angry at the Chinese Communist Party and being, only children from the one-child policy, do you think they would be willing to fight and die? Like, I don't know if they would want to see like those jobs as the jobs to take.
Right. And there's no question that the economic situation of China right now seems to be precarious in some areas. And I'm glad for that. And, sometimes folks say to me, oh, you focus just on hard power and building the Navy and you don't think of anything else. And that's not true. I want us to be able to put pressure on the Chinese Communist Party in all domains. So let's continue to help destabilize their economy. Let's continue to help their young people see the folly and failure and servitude of communism. That's good. We need to keep doing that. Political warfare, information warfare. We need to be in that fight. But when it comes to the military capacity, I haven't read anything that says that the Chinese are having trouble meeting their recruiting goals. So they don't have to have 1.4 billion Chinese get on boats and go across to Taiwan to take Taiwan. All it takes is a couple, few 100,000, and they're going to be able to overwhelm them. So from my take and from what I see, it seems like that the Chinese military has offered some segment of the Chinese population the opportunities of, like, in the 1980s under Ronald Reagan, when people said, hey, I'll join. That's what I did. I didn't come out of some rich background or anything. The Navy was an opportunity for me to find a career, and I enjoyed it. And I think that's what we're seeing today in the Chinese system, is that the PLA is offering up opportunity to some segment of the Chinese population.
And so, what do you think about reports of the recent purges in specifically the rocket force, but in general, the whole, political, ideological cloud that does hang over the Chinese military?
Yeah, the reports of these purges, is it just Xi trying to get, absolute control? It most likely that's what it is. It seems to fit everything that I'm reading, is that these purges, whether in the political arena or in the military arena, are to shore up and confirm and harden Xi's power over the military and the country at large and the party. On the other hand, we can't keep out of the back of our mind that are some of these purges. We use the word purges of these PLA rocket force commanders. I don't think we've actually seen their bodies. I don't think we've seen any PRC press reporting that says what happened to them or characterizes them as purges. So what happens if those two guys are actually in, Purple Mountain working with the Eastern Theater commander to prepare for the invasion of Taiwan? I mean, I don't know if that's happening. It probably isn't, but we don't know for certain that it's not. So we need to keep that in the back of our minds. At least I do.
Well, so let's round this off by going back to the Philippines. What do you think the U.S. should be doing there? And this can also expand to what the U.S. should be doing in general to counter what is a real growing Chinese military threat.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that you guys are bringing it back there, because I think that's really the issue at hand, is what are we doing today to help, I think, remind our treaty ally that our commitments are reliable. And so everybody saw what happened in Kabul. We've seen other events here in just the last couple of years that have shaken the faith of a lot of people around the world in America's commitments. So one way America to restore that trust is to follow through, not just with a statement from the State Department saying that they condemn China's actions at Second Thomas Shoal, but they should be actively working to help the Filipinos resupply that Sierra Madre. And we shouldn't be shy about it. It shouldn't be clandestine. I know that in Washington, that'll be considered provocative, and that you're provoking. You don't need to needlessly provoke Beijing. They're going to have to then not lose face, so they're going to do something. I don't think that if the U.S. Navy warship were to come up alongside as close as they could get to the Sierra Madre and put, small boats over the side and bring them materials, if the Chinese were ready to risk a conflict with the United States, I just don't see it. I don't see it right now. And we need to be prepared for that. And we shouldn't just go down there blindly and do it and send one ship by itself, but we should go down and maybe send a carrier strike group and have them down there for some other operation, but be part of doing that, and then have air cover and all the other things that you would go into an operation like that. But to remind the Chinese that we're there, we're committed to this region, and we will fight for it if required. That's what I recommended 9 years ago, and nobody really wanted to do that from the Obama administration. So maybe I'm just a crank and way out there in left field, but I can tell you that the Philippine people are looking for something like that, and I would suggest that other nations in the region are also intently watching, like Taiwan, like Japan, like South Korea, and they're looking for more than just words.